Hey everybody, welcome in to the podcast and welcome into, for the first time, to the athletic director's office. Gene Smith, gracious enough to welcome Bill Landis and myself, Austin Ward, in for a conversation about the state of the Buckeyes and the more complicated state of college athletics. I don't know why it took me 11 years to be invited in here, Gene, but what a lovely office. Thank you.
Thank you. All this stuff on the walls is stuff my wife won't let me take home. So
I can only imagine what the man cave actually looks like there.
I don't have one, fortunately, but this is my man cave every day.
All right. Well, we have a lot of things to cover, Gene. You are a busy man in a changing landscape here. But before we get into that, how nervous were you for Selection Sunday, or were you, after what happened on November 26th?
Yeah, I really wasn't nervous. Really, I haven't had the opportunity to, the blessing to serve on the CFP committee. And the vote that they had prior to that weekend was critical for us. Placing us in the 5th spot truly gave us an opportunity to catapult into the top 4, depending upon the Utah-USC game. And obviously we all saw that. So I actually felt pretty good that we had an opportunity to move up, which was great. If we didn't move up, we would have gone to the Orange Bowl, which would have been good for us too, really good for us. We hadn't been there in a while, and it's an East Coast type of bowl experience for our fans and our student athletes. Not sure how many of our kids may have opted out, which was a possibility. But I wasn't that nervous. I was really felt pretty confident that we should have been in, based upon what I kind of understood the discussion should be. So we were a one-loss team, and we were ranked number 2 all season long. So that respect in the room was there. Yeah. So we just had to earn it back through somebody helping us.
I think Ohio State fans might have been more nervous on the Tuesday after the Michigan game than they were on the Sunday, because they didn't want to be 6 or 7 behind Alabama or behind Tennessee.
That's it, Bill. Exactly. I was that way. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that Tuesday I was more concerned about that. If we had slid down to 6 or 7, might it make it more difficult to jump into the top 4 with the Utah-USC situation. So I was with the fans on that one Tuesday.
Gene, the body of work for this, I know you do more than football, but that's where most of the attention lies. Yeah. What have you felt about this body of work for this year is unfinished? You're going to the Peach Bowl, and Ryan Day's got a chance to change that, but there seems like a lot of people, there's negativity swirling around because of the consecutive losses in the rivalry. I don't know if it means anything or not. You came upstairs for the post-game press conference. It's not something that you normally do. Like, I don't know if it seems like things are just sitting uncomfortably right now, even though we're talking about a playoff team.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Isn't it? But no, that's a moment in time. That's a big loss. And there's times when I need to be next to my coach. And it's a huge emotional moment. Need to give him support, and hopefully my presence, brings that support and calmness to, his emotions. He has a duty and a responsibility to stand there and answer the questions that you and others ask of him. But he also needs somebody, that's going to be very supportive. And so that's why I do it. I do that. At different times, depending upon the loss. I've done that with other sports as well. But that's a big moment. That's a big loss, and he knows that. And it carries a weight today. So the aggregate of all the things that you talked about, the negativity, that loss, what's going on in recruiting, all that stuff. Is a part of the pressure that he's under.
To that point, and maybe to switch topics just a little bit here, we were talking about this the other day when we were over in the Woody for the press conference so you're preparing for a playoff game.
Right.
There's the transfer portal windows open. Right. Early signing day is next week.
Yeah.
Coaches are coming and going. All this stuff is happening in the span of like 4 weeks. And in 2 years, we're going to have teams playing first round and quarterfinal playoff games. What do you think of the way this calendar is set up right now?
Unbelievable. I think, I forgot if someone asked the question, and I think his response was right. I think a lot of times when some of these decisions are made, no one can really forecast the ultimate implications. No one could forecast the impact of, the transfer portal happened before NIL, and NIL came into place. Agents became allowable because that people weren't really talking about that. That was a major, major change. So that's been in the space, and you have leadership change at the NCAA. So you have all those employees who, anytime there's leadership change anywhere, there's anxiety because people don't know who's going to come in, and so you have rumors spread, and so you have the aggregate of all these things, and Collegiate athletics has reached a unbelievable level of commercialization. And the ecosystem we serve is different. The families, the student athletes, totally different than what I grew up or when you two grew up. And so it's just the aggregate of all those things, I think. And then, social media. I mean, now you have people who can express opinions, validated or not.
Right.
And so that adds to that visceral environment that you alluded to, Austin. But yeah, it's a situation where something has to change at some point. To your question, Bill, I don't know where or how. But we look at each thing individually. With NIL, we need federal legislation. There's no way the NCAA can fix that, in my view.
Right.
We need federal help to mitigate what's happening in the inducement space. We got to have that. If we don't get federal help, we're going to need state help, maybe. I don't know that, but that's a possibility. But then you got to look at some of the other things. I'm not comfortable with the transfer window that we have. I've always believed that student athletes should have the right to transfer. I support that 100%. But the way we're doing it now, to your question, kind of concerns me. So that needs to be looked at.
Gene, a lot of these things, as you said, they're all happening at once, which probably or definitely adds to the difficulty of correcting it for the future. I think sometimes there's a perception that you've been doing this for so long, you're so well regarded within like NCAA legislation circles, whether that's just because of being on the basketball committee or the CFP or others. Like you've always been involved in that and helped look for changes. I think sometimes people think maybe you're entrenched in your ideas. I don't think that's fair because as I've covered you now for 11 years, it's changed pretty dramatically. I think that you've evolved with the times and you deserve credit for that. But like where else can it go? I think there's a line that you don't want to cross ever, which is the employment of student athletes.
I don't.
And to me, I think, well, maybe that's the one magic bullet. Like, why am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I think we have to always explore that and be open to that. I just feel like based upon what I know now, if we don't continue to find ways legally to provide additional resources like cost of attendance, the Austin money, NIL, and in that model, and we ultimately move to an employer-employee relationship, it changes the whole world around what we are doing relative to education. I am still entrenched in education, and I watch all of our student athletes, whatever sport, and you watch them emerge over time. You guys see them and how they become so mature from the time they walked in the door. You interview them. You can literally see it, over the years. And so I'm interested in that. Now, can you do that if you had an employer-employee relationship? You probably could. But I just think it's harder. And by the way, as an employee, unless you change state laws for that category of people, you fall under Ohio laws, the Ohio ethics laws. I mean, there's a whole lot of things in that space. So I agree. We need to keep finding ways to provide more financial resources to student athletes. But I think crossing the line to an employer-employee relationship is problematic. I don't disagree that maybe one day we're bargaining.
Right.
But you don't have to be an employee to do that.
Right.
So I'm fine with
Yeah. I think the other part that people tell me is like, well, if they're employees, they can be fired.
That's true too. That's true too. Quantifiable goals and objectives. Yeah, no, that would change the relationship.
Yeah, of course,
big time. They could definitely be fired if you're an employee. Holy smoke! All of us as employees fall in a regulatory system that is totally different,
right?
As a student, and so. I don't know. I just don't think that's the ultimate decision we have to get to. We got to keep it in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I think there's a lot of other things we can do before we get there.
That makes sense. I'll stop saying it.
No, I'm just.
Well, I don't think about the regulation of that part. That doesn't enter my mind. It's why it's easy for me to sit on the outside and say, well, that's the solution. Let's just do that. But I'm not into it on a day-to-day basis. That's why I come and ask you those questions.
Yeah, go look up the Ohio ethics laws. You'll be like, oh.
I'm already learning way too much about this stuff.
Gene, you mentioned NIL and inducements, and I guess the need for federal legislation, which does not feel imminent, nor does the NCAA acting on anything feel imminent. So I guess what I'm getting at is, at the moment, do inducements almost feel like table stakes in recruiting? And if so, and I feel like inducements is almost pejorative. I guess I don't mean it that way, but I mean offering a competitive, robust NIL package to prospective student athletes, is that table stakes now? And if it is, where do you think Ohio State is in terms of being competitive in that space, or does it want to be competitive in that space?
Yeah, we're not. To your point, I mean, so you have to separate Ohio State versus what's happening in the collective space. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at what has happened in the Midwest around collectives, the value system that exists in the Midwest is totally different.
Yeah.
And so you haven't seen collectives emerge to the point like they have in other parts of the country. Now, might they emerge? Yes, to your point, where we have to ultimately, in order to maintain our success and help our coaches, we might have to. But there's a value system in this part of the country that's totally different. Yeah. And I think that's a result of where we are. Now, we have to move with the times. So if there is no federal legislation or something else that creates an enforcement deal around inducement, because the collectives are boosters.
Right.
And you still have booster legislation. Mm-hmm. And so if there's nothing there, then at some point, I'm hopeful that the community somewhere along something emerges that can help our coaches from a collective point of view. But what we have to focus on is building our NIL opportunities for our student athletes here. That's what we can control.
Right.
And the university is so engaged in that. There's a university committee that's working on how do we ultimately institutionalize NIL for intercollegiate athletics. And I'm really excited about all my colleagues, vice presidents and others being involved in helping us build a model for the future for our current student athletes. Because that's what we can control mostly.
It's funny because if you separate the two, I think Ohio State is probably competitive as anybody in opportunities for its current athletes. But then I also think there is a thought that it is behind in the prospective student athlete space.
We are way behind in that space.
Okay.
Right? But you got to separate the we versus the collective space.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So, we don't control that. That's not, we're not going there. That's not who we are. And we don't control that. If I could, it'd be a whole new ball. But we don't control that. And it just hasn't emerged. I mean, in this part of the country, and actually when you guys can do it better than me.
Yeah.
When you look at it, where has it emerged? And you think about, those collectives that we think are robust. And, you can create a list and count on two hands probably.
Yeah.
literally. And so, but I can't go down that road. You two can. Sure.
Well, Gene,
but you're right.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss your question. You're right. We're behind.
Do you think that this maybe doesn't make any sense as just a hypothetical, but should the schools be able to be more involved with their collectives? Would that?
Well, I've actually made a proposal that institutions should be more involved in NIL. So, our medical center is part of the institution. And they can't do NIL activities. The engineering the example I use a lot is he's said it publicly, is that he's interested in cars, but he can't go do a deal with our car research institute.
Yeah.
And so I am trying to get my colleagues in the NCAA to understand that that's what we should be able to do. If the engineering has, X number of student athletes majoring in engineering, why can't they do a deal with one of our biomedical engineering students to do something in the NIL space with one of their partners? And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that in the future. But relative to the collectives, I really feel like we need to have more engagement in how they're structured. I'm concerned that some of them might not meet the IRS requirements when it's all said and done. That's not ours, but that's that we have here. But nationally, some of the things I hear, I'm like, and there was a bill that was floated just before the last summer, just before all the voting took place. So I think it's going to come back to challenge those.
When you put out, so last week you took the step to at least bring recognition publicly to the three, main collectives. What prompted that? I assume that it's what you're talking about, that there is some concern about falling behind. Like, in your mind, how desperate is maybe too strong of a word. What's the situation? What sort of prompted that, and what needs to?
It was asked of us. It became permissible about a month ago for institutions to do that, and so you saw different ADs do that. Butler did it. I think Texas did it. So they showed me some of the ADs that did it. So I said, okay, let's put it out there.
Okay.
There's wanting to create an awareness that it was okay. For years, and you guys know, for years, we've been telling people, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. And so now it's flipped. Like, you guys could take somebody to lunch. So it's a whole new ballgame.
Right.
So I was asked to do that, and I said, okay, sure, it's legal, let's do it. And encourage people to feel fine doing it if that's their interest.
One of the things that I think we've been having conversations about with some fans is, I guess, maybe wanting to have an understanding of the culture, maybe as it pertains specifically to Ohio State in terms of fundraising. I know that's a major part of what you do. Is there anything in your mind that can be done in terms of fundraising to maybe point people in the direction of collectives who might otherwise want to donate to the athletic department or donate to a construction project? Do any of those conversations need to happen so that you guys aren't behind in the spaces we're talking about?
Well, I think in that space, I never want to try and direct someone from a fundraising point of view. We spend a lot of time talking with people and trying to figure out their interests. We will always share what our priorities are. But I just philosophically, having fundraised for how many ever years I've been doing it, that's a personal thing to go into your back pocket, and you two have to go home and justify what you just did. And so, I just feel
we struggle with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I just feel more comfortable having individual conversations. So if someone's out there and they are interested in possibly donating to the collective, they should call us, and we could talk through. Okay, if you're going to redirect your gift to the foundation, to the collective, then here's the implications. But let's just talk about your interests. You've been donating to women's soccer for so long. Okay, let's talk about that. So I guess I take a little bit more personal approach, and maybe that's flawed, but I just feel like that's a personal decision, and I just think people should feel comfortable calling us.
When you put it back before we leave, Gene, to the on-field product, USC, UCLA seems like there's no hurdle there anymore. It looks like the UCLA situation has been resolved, so they will be coming to the Big Ten. I assume that, the divisional lineup, it's going to remain in place for one more year and then probably be scrapped after that. I don't know. I guess that's a prediction.
No, I'd say that's safe to say. All of our conversations have led us to that so far. We haven't taken a formal vote. But that seems to be the sense of the room at this point. Somewhere in the spring, we'll probably take that formal, yes, this is the way we're going.
So you've got changes coming to the size of the Big Ten, the structure of the Big Ten. The college football playoff expansion seems to be barreling ahead.
Yeah.
Even just the way you're going to be evaluating football teams is going to be changing dramatically.
Totally.
When you look at what that means for Ohio State specifically, what goes through your mind about the next couple of years here? The more opportunity. I'm really excited about UCLA and USC coming in. I'm really excited about our new television partners. NBC and CBS, they're really ecstatic, and really at the beginning of partnerships, the enthusiasm is high, the creativity is high. So we got to make sure we, direct that and take advantage of the right way as we build our relationship. So there's a lot going on there, but I'm very excited about the expanded playoff. It offers more opportunity, and for us, now, we'll be less nervous. So frankly,
it changes the entire landscape.
Those Tuesdays will be different. But it really does. I mean, we should always be in. And that's the way I look at it. And so it just changes how you think about it. But that doesn't change the fact that our goal is to win every game that we play. And that's for every sport we have. But certainly in football, we want to win every game we play. But, if something happens and you lose one, you're still probably in.
You're still probably, that's what's going to be hard to kind of recalibrate your mind.
Totally, all of us. I mean, everybody. Then it turns to where are we actually going to be ranked and where are we going to be?
Right.
The seeding conversation.
That's exactly it. It's just like in basketball, right?
Yeah.
It's like we know we're in,
right?
But where are we seated? Is it a true seed, or all those type of conversations are going to be.
Yeah,
fun.
I think it's going to be tough for me because everyone who watches on the podcast knows that I had something of a meltdown about the playoff credentials of Ohio State on November 26th. And then I needed a day or two to, reset and say, the resume still is good enough. So if you don't have to freak out over every single game, maybe that's better.
Well, you can still freak out.
I don't think I should do that.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, it's not. No.
I have a very important question as it pertains to expansion. Big Ten championship in Las Vegas.
Oh, I'd love that in a minute. I'd be there and tomorrow if I need to go work it, I'm there. We've been blessed with Indianapolis, and we continue to talk about Ford Field in Minneapolis. We always do, but Indianapolis has been good to us.
Yeah.
Our fans love it. It's easy to travel to. I mean, the logistics of it makes it so much easier, but we still have to think out of the box. And I'm with you. I still think we need to think about the West. We need to think about Ford Field in Minneapolis, but we know Indianapolis is a safe one.
Yeah,
and it's worked. I mean, sometimes it's that KISS mentality, keep it simple. So at the end of the day, we don't want to break something that's not doesn't need to be fixed, but we need to be progressive. So.
Compromise.
Look at what we're doing with the Peach Bowl. We have been there.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
I'm excited about being in Mercedes. I haven't been in it, and so it's crazy.
Yeah. compromise, we'll just have Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. And
Even better.
Everyone wins.
Let's do it. We should have like a formal meeting. You guys have me come in as the guest speaker.
Done. All right, we're making moves here. We're solving all of the issues for college athletics one at a time, starting with the media. Gene has a lot of other things on his plate, obviously, so we appreciate him giving us some time this morning. We could probably go for about 10 more hours, as much as Bill and I love covering college sports and as much as is going on right now. But Gene, we do appreciate you having us in here for the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Austin. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Let me first thank you guys for your professionalism. You guys have always been above board and honest and forthright. So thank you for being professional journalists. And to the fans, thank you for your patience. We really appreciate your patience. We are in a time where we have a lot of issues in intercollegiate athletics, but at The Ohio State, we're going to try and continue to do it the right way and make you proud. So we got to win in order to do that. So we get it.
That's it. Well said. For Gene and Bill, I'm Austin. Thanks for joining us so much for a special conversation here on the podcast. We'll see you next time.